And we are live.
Isn't that
Yeah.
exciting?
I
Goodness.
know. First live stream in a long while.
This is um this is my first live stream I've done with you.
Oh, yeah.
Is this my first live stream that I've done full stop?
Oh, my
Possibly.
goodness me.
Quite possibly.
It's also our first conversation. Like, proper conversation.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean we've DM'd a bit. We
Oh,
had a nice little time at Sitsi where I hardly knew your name, but
that's, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this
Well,
is
it's a good one to start with, isn't it?
absolutely. So, let's just get the formalities out of the way. Who are you and how do you know me?
Hello, my name is James or Bing Jim on YouTube. Go check me out after this live stream. Hang about for now. Um, yeah, I'm just I'm a kid who likes long walks on the beach and purple. I like cameras and stuff, and I am a big superhero fan, as well as a film fan. So when I look at the DC films, I'm looking at them from multiple perspectives, and they sadden me on both sides. Unfortunately, so. But yeah, yeah, I know you through the YouTube community, and we hung out at Summer in the City, which was good fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, we haven't really. Yeah, there we are. So that's me. That's
There you
Greg.
go.
You must be Greg if you're watching this.
If you're on my channel watching my stream,
Yeah,
typically.
yeah. Hang on, I'll just give you a retweet now. I'm assuming you've
Oh,
given out a link, so I'll
look
just
at
go
that.
and do it now.
I assume it sent out an auto link.
Yep, I've started a live stream on YouTube. Give it a cheeky retweet.
Perfect. So,
Fantastic.
Justice League came out a few days ago,
It did. It did.
and I went to see it at the midnight IMAX showing.
But did you actually?
I did.
Oh, very committed. I like that. I
Very.
like that.
I shouldn't have because I had work at 9 a.m. the next day.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
It was good. I got a poster. I was very caught up in the atmosphere. I always like midnight screenings for that reason, because everyone in that room is having a good time, regardless of the film's quality.
Sure, sure.
How did you see it?
I just saw it in the cinema. I just went sort of by myself, and I went in with. Did I go in with low expectations? I went in knowing that there wasn't a huge amount of hype when I went in. I just sort of went in. I was like, all right, well, Justice League. I'm a fan of Batman. I'm a fan of Superman when he's done right. I'm a fan of the Flash. All these characters have been a big part of my childhood with all the cartoons. I used to watch Batman Brave and the Bold quite a lot, which was fantastic. But like DC has not been hitting the nail on the head with these past few movies. Why we'll go into. But I was going into this movie going, is it going to be okay? Is it not? Am I just going to enjoy it anyway because it's characters that I like and just go, that was terrible, but I had a good time. But I went in under very sort of average conditions, I guess, in comparison to you. And I saw the movie, and well, I mean, I was disappointed. I was. I mean, I shouldn't have got my hopes up really, but what did you think, Greg? Did you enjoy it, or did you?
Right. Well, I went into it with a little bit of a different sort of background. So
Sure.
I have a friend who works at a cinema, so he gets to see some movies early. And as a result, I got a message off of him saying, "Hey, I went to see it. Sorry, I couldn't get you in. It was short notice, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed it." And I also went to see Batman v Superman with him.
Okay.
We went to a double bill on the midnight showing of that,
Oh right.
which was, it was exhausting because Man of Steel and Batman v Superman,
Quite heavy.
regardless of regardless of your thoughts and what quality and whatnot, they are tiring.
Yeah. They're very serious, scowly films, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he didn't like Batman v Superman.
Right.
And he told me that he really enjoyed Justice League. So I sort of took that as a, yeah, right. So I took that as a sort of, total reset because I'd seen the Rotten Tomatoes scores, I'd seen the reviews, and they were fairly average to low. And so I went in with a lot of people saying it was a bit rubbish, and one person I trust very much saying it was excellent.
Right.
As a Zack Snyder fan.
Okay.
So, first of all, have you seen Zack Snyder's other films?
I haven't. I'm very aware of Watchmen, but I haven't. No, I have watched bits of it, but I have not seen the whole thing the whole way through. I mean, obviously you can elaborate on this, but to my knowledge, he looks at the. I don't want to say he looks at the bigger picture because that implies that he looks at the whole of the DCEU. I mean, he looks at what he wants the film to be. In like a very sort of metaphor, he's a very grand thinker.
You're exactly right.
For instance, with Batman versus Superman, he's like, I want it to be this incredible. It's just like it was for me as a child. I want it to be this incredible modern look on it, and I see him as quite pretentious, but I do see him as a big dreamer when it comes to making a film. For instance, I love his cinematography. Actually, if I'm honest, I think it's really quite beautiful.
He's absolutely incredible at the visual element of a movie. That's what a lot of people say about Watchmen, because he adapted the unadaptable. Watchmen is inherently a graphic novel, and making it anything else kind of takes away from what makes it good. And so essentially what he did was he just used the graphic novel as a storyboard.
Which is very clever, but can be quite difficult to achieve. But very devoted to the comic. I do like that. No, I'm under the impression that it was a mixed bag with Watchmen. Like some people think it's fantastic, some people think it's it's all right. But as far as comic book movies go, it's quite like a staple because of how tight it was with the graphic novel.
Yes. It didn't add anything. It changed a few things, and it had to leave a few things out, and that's why it's very divisive. It's very rare that you'll find someone who just went, yeah, it's all right. You're either going to find someone who went, it is the perfect recreation, or it is a meaningless abomination.
Sure.
His other films include Sucker Punch, which around about 2010, and was again very divisive. It wasn't an adaptation of anything. It was, as you say, very grand, very sort of lofty in what it wanted to be. What it tried to be was a very expressionist take on the male fantasy, female empowerment, and mental illness. And like, what?
That sounds like a big plate, doesn't it?
It's such a big plate. I personally really enjoyed it. I can see its flaws. However, I like a lot of the flaws that people point out are just what it was trying to be. So they say, oh, it's overly male fantasy, and I'm like, it's
that was very much the intention.
It tries to do female empowerment, but it ends up being weirdly sexist, and I'm like, it's Zack Snyder. If you look at his other films, so 300.
Yeah. I forgot that was Zack Snyder. Of course.
Is a very nonsense film. Like, you don't look at that and think, that's a narrative worth remembering. You look at that and think, I'm being told a Greek myth on screen.
Yeah.
And that's how I describe a lot of Zack Snyder's work, especially Batman v Superman. I think of Man of Steel to an extent.
Sure.
A modern myth. You take these characters, the Justice League themselves. You take these larger-than-life characters who are symbols rather than people.
I agree.
He wanted to tell a story that's very philosophical with symbols. And so a lot of the complaints are that Superman doesn't have much of a character.
Sure.
And when I first watched Man of Steel, I didn't mind that because I felt that it was very sort of retelling the Superman story, sort of not from his perspective. There's a
Yeah,
lot
very
of
much
the
from the
movie,
world's perspective. Sure, sure.
yeah,
Um,
especially with the opening of Justice League when it shows you that sort of montage of a world without
oh,
hope.
yeah. No, I honestly, I love the intro to Justice League with the little kid filming Superman. I love that. Let's bring it back before we just go, because I can see exactly where this conversation is going to go. I'm going to jump in myself right here. But before we get to that, what did you think of Justice League? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it?
I very much enjoyed it when I was watching it. Sorry,
Right.
I'm on my phone right now. I very much enjoyed it when I was watching it. And the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to realize what went wrong.
Of course, yeah.
However, it's not quite to the same extent that I did with Suicide Squad.
Oh boy, I hate that film so much. Let's not go into that. But yeah.
So yeah, I liked it, and there were flaws. The main flaw was that it just didn't have a story. The story was entirely bad guy arrives, unite the League, and beat the bad guy. And also Superman has like an effect
Yeah.
on the world.
The story was completely non-existent, and the villain was the villain was a villain. It wasn't a person. It wasn't some kind of corporation. It wasn't like some god or some. There was no character. There was no substance. There was no aim. It was the most paper thin, generic, stick figure sort of villain that you could give. And a movie that is entitled Justice League, until like the Avengers came along, the Justice League of America was the superhero team. Was the superhero team with A-list superheroes. And the big culmination, the big thing that they've been leading up to with this universe was completely flat, completely dead, and had no sort of threat, no repercussions or anything.
There was no impact.
There was no impact at all, and there was no trajectory with it either. It was just this. It was a. I don't know how to explain it. It was like the film was, look, we've got everyone on screen together. That's all it was. That was all it was.
Yeah.
And there was no. I think the real big issue with the entire DCEU is that there are two things. One of them is Zack Snyder, and I'll discuss that because I don't hate the guy and I don't hate his films, but I think we'll come on to that. And I think the second big part is they're trying to make a universe. They're trying to catch up with Marvel, and that is very much. It's obvious in the way that they've sorted all their films. Excuse me, burp there, but it's not working out for them, and they don't know where they want to go. They don't know what they want from this universe other than we want a DC superhero universe like Marvel have got going on because it makes them loads of money, and we want that money and we want that popularity. They've got no aim for it. No. Do you want to say something? I feel like I'm very quiet.
So I fully agree.
Yeah.
Obviously the main issue with a lot of this discussion is comparison. You don't want to say Marvel versus DC. You don't want that. However, it is inevitable. We experienced, we experienced the same thing when Wonder Woman came out, with comparisons to the first Captain America film.
Right, of course.
And you don't want to limit your criticism of the Wonder Woman film by just saying, well, Captain America did this.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. And if we briefly mention, as you brought up, the direction, then we have Marvel Studios, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, their direction right from the very beginning, right from the end credit scene of Iron Man,
Yeah.
you had the Avengers Initiative.
Yeah.
And the story it's telling has been a decade coming. We're just going to get the finale in 2019.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a larger story of heroes around the world popping up, teaming up, and then becoming the protectors of Earth, becoming the Earth's mightiest heroes as they're known, world renowned, world appreciated, and having dynamics between them as they shift and clash with each other at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
And then from there, who knows where they're going to go. Whereas with DC, it very much felt like, again, as you say, they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
However, they were doing it in the reverse way. So back when Man of Steel came out,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we were just off the backs of a Batman trilogy. We were just off the back of a failed Green Lantern.
Which apparently was meant to, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that was meant to be the first movie in the DCEU.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard the same thing.
It's completely different to, it honestly, imagine, I mean, Ryan Reynolds, imagine a really tacky version of Deadpool, but he's green. it was a comedy piece, basically.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was a B movie comedy, but it was about a superhero. And anyway, it was quite bad.
Right. Okay. That's not
Yeah.
what Green Lantern should be.
No, exactly. But it was, the DCEU was very much, we've got to get our own universe, and it was right. Well, we've got to make the Justice League because we've got to have a team up movie, and well, they've got Thanos. Well, we're gonna have Darkseid. We're gonna build it up huge, 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 huge. And they missed out all the steps in between. They missed out the coming together. They missed out the falling apart. They missed all, as you were saying, sort of all the details and the delicacy of it all. And
so I see what they were going for. With Man of Steel, they were going for the idea that we start with Superman. We just tell the Superman story, and from there we expand. So Man of Steel was promising, regardless of whether or not you think it's good or bad.
Yeah,
it held a promise that there was more.
Yeah,
I think it's. I personally love that film.
Sure.
I personally think it's. I use this word carefully. It's a masterpiece, and by that I mean it is the perfect Zack Snyder Superman. Now, if you think that's a good thing, great. If you think that's a bad thing, cool. But it accomplished everything it set out to do, and started a path that Batman v Superman tried to continue.
I'll tell you exactly. I mean, this was all my notes. I was talking to myself earlier when I was making myself some cheese on toast for lunch. I know exactly what the issue is here. Do you mind if I take over here at all?
Go for it.
Man of Steel, as you were saying, is very much a Zack Snyder movie. Whether you like that, whether you dislike that, that's up to you. As you were saying, Zack Snyder makes things about symbols. He tries to throw in stuff about philosophy and this kind of mythical edge to it. And to me, Batman versus Superman and Superman and Man of Steel, they work very well as sequel pieces, but only, well, I mean, apart from all the setting up for Justice League, which littered throughout Batman versus Superman. In terms of visionary ideas, he was not making DC films. He was not making Marvel movies, but DC movies. He was taking DC characters, Batman and Superman, which are iconic and like godlike figures, symbols, and he was injecting them into his political world, because that's what Batman versus Superman was.
Oh, very much so.
Whether you, I mean, every act is a political act or something. If you want to make a movie about Batman and Superman and all sort of the political side to their struggles, I think that's fine. And I think Batman versus Superman doesn't fail at that. But if you're making like an off-piste art house piece but with these big names, Batman versus Superman, that's fine. But the issue is when Zack Snyder made these films, though to him as a director, maybe he was making this philosophical art house piece, to the general audience and to Warner Brothers, he wasn't. He was making he was making the DCEU. The DCEU, a complex sort of, I don't know what to call it, but it's huge amounts of characters, it's huge amounts of story, it's huge amounts of history. You cannot shove that into a Zack Snyder solo movie filter. Like there's a reason art house films don't have a cinematic universe to them. It's because they tell their story in one piece. They have their message in one piece. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, love it or hate it, is not a philosophical art house piece. It's a bunch of superheroes. It's escapism. It's a bunch of fun. Are there clever messages to be taken from it? Absolutely. But when the basis for your comic book fantasy universe is, I'm going to make a stone cold philosophical statement, you cannot grow from there. You are restricted and you are limited to what is essentially a niche audience. And I feel that is the huge issue with the DCEU, is they've started on the wrong foot, quite literally. And Suicide Squad, to me, was the loudest sort of offender in that, because it was completely different. Wonder Woman as well, though it was a much better film than, in my opinion, all three of those combined, it was still, it wasn't Zack Snyder's little niche little, you know, Zack Snyder with his lamp and he's playing with his toys and he's going, this is my art piece, this is my masterpiece. And you can't grow from that. You cannot build in the same way that you can from Iron Man in that sense. I mean, again, I've spoken for too long now. What do you...
No, that's entirely fair, because everything you've said has sort of brought on thoughts, which are, Zack Snyder could have made a Superman trilogy and have it been, I can't think of the grammatically correct
Sure.
sentence there, but if he'd have made a trilogy, then it would have been, for better or worse, a really Snyder Superman story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we almost had it. We almost had it. But the problem is, he made the first movie and it was good. Regardless of whether it's a good movie, it was a good first movie in this hypothetical scenario.
Sure.
It told the story it wanted to tell. It gave us this mythical Superman who we don't know. He didn't have a character. However, that's because he's a god. He's a symbol of hope. He's a symbol of the Superman, the everything we want to be.
Yeah, of course.
Except within that film, he's imperfect. It's a little bit unintentionally humorous, but the snapping of Zod's neck, that was really well done in getting its point across, because that is the birth of Superman. I've seen a video comparing that scene to the actual birth of Kal-El at the beginning of the movie.
Sure.
Shot-for-shot recreations.
Really? That's clever. See, that is clever. See, yeah, if you're trying to make a Superman trilogy, isolated by itself, you can go sort of artsy-fartsy with it, and that's fine, and that's good.
So what we could have had was this. Man of Steel was the birth of Superman. It was Kal-El literally being born, Clark Kent being created by Kal-El, and then Superman being born at the end of his first battle. And his first battle is terrible. He destroys lots of Metropolis. He fails in a lot of things. But by the end of it, he's discovered himself. He's become Superman, and he's ready to go off and be the world's protector. And then the second movie in this hypothetical scenario is Batman versus Superman. Or, as I would have renamed it, simply Dawn of Justice. Because Batman v Superman is a good marketable name. It's not a good movie name. Dawn of Justice, very good name.
How would you change Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice though? Because
I would cut it in half.
Cut in half. Because the way I see it, again, if you're doing this isolated, stylized, philosophical Superman story, that's fine, and you can do that. And I reckon the conflict with this aged Batman, who is a murderer, who is this, that, the other, I think that could have worked fine, and that would have been an interesting take. And again, setting this godlike figure in this political world would have been an interesting take. However, they didn't do that. Clearly, Zack Snyder, I think, tried to do that.
Yeah.
But all of this world building, all of this making a big name franchise, just completely, it did not work. It did not work at all.
So what Batman v Superman tried to be, and what I believe it should have been, was simply set a few years later. Like, that's what it was. We see this little montage of Superman saving people and blah, blah, blah. And one of the criticisms was that we didn't feel that. We didn't feel that Superman had changed since Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would have spent a lot of the first half of this movie focusing on Superman being Superman. You show the audience how long it's been, how he's changed, and what's going on. And then you show aged, jaded, murderous Batman.
Yeah, of course.
Who doesn't trust him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a metaphor. I mean, sorry to interrupt here, but he's a metaphor for post 9/11 America.
Yeah,
the way I see it, at least.
Absolutely. The imagery at the beginning of the movie of
of course, Superman, yeah, the towers coming. Yeah, of course, yeah,
it's definitely 9/11. Superman's first battle is 9/11 2.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And so what I would have done is I would have established that because Bruce is aged, there are other superheroes out there. The Flash is out there. Green Arrow, Cyborg, Aquaman, etc., etc., etc. And I would have, because this isn't to set up a Justice League. That's what I need to stress.
Yeah, that's not what you want. My concern is adding in those characters leaves you with the promise of a Justice League. For me, I would have just left it as Batman and Superman and their conflict. Yeah. Forget the rest of the DCU.
Well, so I wouldn't have included them in the film.
Sure.
What I would have done is done a Robin. So you know how in Batman v Superman we know Robin existed.
Yeah, we do.
And we know the Joker.
Are we ever going to learn anything more about that? No, we're
not.
Thanks, Justice League. Thanks.
So what I would have done is I would have had Batman talking to Alfred more and have Batman essentially say, Superman's out there and he's dangerous. These other guys out here doing their own thing, they're all right. I need to take down Superman, like down a few pegs. Then we have this ideological conflict. We have a decent, like, I enjoyed the actual fight. The Batman versus Superman fight was great. It ended poorly, but watching the two of them fight, it was a contrived reason, but the spectacle of it was what I wanted.
Sure. I wasn't fond of the fight at all, if I'm honest.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, obviously. I don't know. What was wrong with that fight? It felt very clunky. It felt very, it felt like boxing, but not like good boxing, like old-fashioned. You take a punch, I take a punch.
Okay.
It just felt very blocky, and in terms of a spectacle, obviously there were shots of it that I was like, wow, that's nice. But in terms of the whole energy of the fight, it was two boxers going up to each other, going, well, we're gonna fight now, and it's
Right.
yeah. Do you know what? We are gonna fight now, taking punches,
So
and then sort of Martha, which I think is an interesting scene, but we'll come on to that in a bit.
yeah. So what I essentially would have had, because we only had one bit Batman v Superman fight, whereas what we should have done, I mean, again, comparing it, but Civil War, you
Cool.
had the airport fight, and then you had the
The
personal
act,
fight
the
at the
actual,
end.
yeah.
Yeah. We should have had that. We should have had Batman v Superman, like, you know, the do you bleed scene?
Yeah.
That should have been their first kerfuffle. That should have been more than just Superman warning Batman. That should have been Superman trashing Batman. And that would have given Batman a proper reason. Because I would have also eliminated all of this Lex Luthor stuff.
Oh, cut it
Because
out. No one needs it. Yeah.
what it did, and the reason is more than just me wanting to rewrite this movie. The reason is because the Lex Luthor stuff goes into Doomsday, and Doomsday it would have been moved. So this one of the big complaints about Batman v Superman is it feels like two movies put together, but not given enough room to breathe.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
So Batman would have had a better reason to fight Superman. It would have been less contrived, and therefore we would have cared more.
I
And
agree.
therefore it could have been split into two fights, with Superman trashing Batman, saying like, "Dude, I'm a good guy. Stop." And then
Yeah,
that would have
being very much
given,
in control of the situation and just not being cocky about it, but very much.
yeah, and that would have given Batman like a grudge that we would have understood and taken into the final fight,
Yeah, sure.
which would have ended with a better Martha scene. Because
Yeah.
the
I
Martha
I think
scene, yeah,
what the Martha scene represents, I think, is great. It's fine. I mean, obviously, you have so many DC fans going, you just don't understand it. It's about seeing Superman as a human. And it's like, actually, you're absolutely right. Batman hearing the name Martha and whatever, it's about him realizing that they're both human beings. But because it was that's my mum's name, it came off so cheap and like
it was so
forced.
rushed
If,
because
if
you
they,
that was the
yeah,
second act of the film, or like however many acts that film actually had. It was the middle of the film, and so you needed the ending to be them coming together. And so they're like, they're fighting, but we need them to be friends. Martha.
yeah,
If it had been given the time to breathe, then the entire fight, Superman could have been trying to convince Bruce rather than just being like, no, you need to listen. Oh, well, guess I'm done talking now. You could have had Superman trying to convince him and get through to him, and then only at the very end, when he's holding the spear, do you get this, oh, I'm in the wrong.
sure. I mean, I as much as I mock it because it was such a quick turnaround from old Brucey, um, it, I reckon it would have worked better if they didn't both have the same Martha. If they weren't both called Martha.
Yeah.
If it was just like Susan, or like it's like Susan, it's like it's my mum, and he's like,
You've got a mum, like,
hang on, and it's obviously I recognize that Martha is a much more striking word to say as it is his mum, as his mum's name, but it was very much the execution
yeah,
was sloppy and apparently laughable. I mean, I know I laughed,
yeah.
but
Literally all he needed to have said, like the more realistic thing to have said, is just my mother.
yeah,
I don't know like a lot of people who refer to their own mother by their first name.
no. And why would Superman, as he's about to die, just shout out a random like it just doesn't work.
Yeah. You could have had Superman be like, there's actually more at stake here, you idiot. And so you would have had them come together after all of this conflict, work out the differences, and by the end of the film, the Justice League formed. And we don't need like, oh, there's a big promise of an extended universe. You just have to have like essentially an epilogue of like Superman and Batman get along now and they're working together, and then like an ending shot of the Hall of Justice or whatever it's called being
Sure.
built and like opened. Because one of my main issues, and this is getting back to the Justice League film, is that nobody knows who the Justice League are. Like that just occurred to me quite recently. By the end of this Justice League film, what does the general public think?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The entire sort of concept of the Justice League, perhaps even more so than the Avengers, is that humanity has protectors.
Yeah.
Like the Avengers doesn't need anyone to know about them, but by the end of the first film, everyone knows who they are, and it's so inspiring. The Avengers don't
Yeah.
need to be
Oh,
inspiring.
cool.
They've always been just sort of a military task force, but not owned by anyone. And that works for Marvel because it's quite grounded, even in the comics. It's all very
It's a very techy world.
yeah. The average
Or at least the
person,
modern sort of iterations of it are a very, and again that comes back to growing your films from Iron Man.
yeah,
You've proposed this quite techy world, and that's exactly what we've got. I mean, look at Vulture in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
exactly.
Comment.
Whereas with the Justice League,
It works.
yeah, the Justice League are people you could imagine building statues of. They are
Yes, exactly.
gods, or if not gods, aliens or people who have become gods. Because even Batman, Batman is the least of the Justice League we have on film. He is the least godlike of the lot of them. So Wonder Woman, literal god, Aquaman,
God
Atlantic,
of the sea.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cyborg is beyond human technology, brought a man back from the dead.
Yeah.
The Flash is just granted the gift of the Speed Force. And then Batman.
Oh yeah.
But the thing with Batman is, as we see somewhat in Batman v Superman and somewhat in Justice League, he is fear. He's brought himself beyond God status with intimidation tactics. So the idea of Batman, and this is one of my main issues with the Dark Knight trilogy, and one of the reasons I like the Tim Burton films so much, is that the idea of Batman is that the criminals don't know he exists, but they know that something exists.
Yeah.
And so you have a man elevating himself to God status. The Avengers don't have that. The Justice League do. And the lack of impact I feel that the Justice League had was because we, the audience and the population within this film, don't care about these icons.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree.
So
it's very much how they're positioned, I think, which is just the complete failure of this film. Justice League, which is the film we're talking about, but we've just
exactly.
about Batman vs Superman the whole time.
I'm wrapping it round because Snyder's vision was compromised. Oh, that sounds so pretentious, but like Snyder's vision was definitely compromised by the studio going, we want an extended universe. Whereas Snyder is very like, I'm making a self-contained story. And I think what would have made his self-contained story good, at least to fans of his work, would have been having Batman v Superman be entirely about the ideology of Batman and Superman, and then the Justice League being created at the end of it as a way of symbolizing that conflict is over. We're entering a new age.
Simplifying unity and stuff. Yeah. No, of course. It just.
And then this third film would have simply been the second half of Batman v Superman, except good.
Yeah, like, and then you can end it on the death of Superman and how you carry on from there.
There you go. And you don't need to make a full film. That's like you make Birth of Superman, Batman v Superman, Death of Superman. And
exactly.
Death of Superman film set 5 years after this Justice League was formed at the end of Batman v Superman, where we see everyone working together, and then Doomsday is created because, sure, let's go with Lex Luthor. I enjoyed Lex Luthor's I hate God because God doesn't exist and is also better than me deal. Regardless of like the actor's performance, I enjoyed the theme. And so you
Yeah.
just take that, you have it's Frankenstein, Lex Luthor and
Yeah.
Doom.
No. Yeah. No. Of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you bring in Doomsday, he kills Superman, and then we just go, well, let's carry on and have
Yeah.
the Justice League be Superman. Because I like that idea of it was briefly touched upon at the funeral scene of Superman in BVS. There was this idea that in Superman's absence, we make a Justice League.
Man. Oh yeah. That as well.
Yeah.
In terms of the literal sense, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, of course.
So
Again,
yeah.
when you make you can absolutely play with the source material. Like if you want to make Lex Luthor this completely different, you know, Jesse Eisenberg character, then I believe, and I think this is sort of should be sort of accepted status quo. Like you can absolutely do that. But I think the real issue that gets to people is when you have a promise of DC Comics, but a film version, you promise them that kind of accuracy, that kind of not reimagining, like that sort of elevation. Yeah, you expect that sort of evolution and elevation from 2D to 3D on a screen. And when you suddenly change Batman to be a murderer, when you change Lex Luthor to be this bizarre, wacko sort of, you know, straggly hair.
Let's be real. Lex Luthor in the films is the Riddler.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. But like
it's the inferiority complex, the mad acting. He's the Riddler, but you just call him.
He absolutely is. Just put a green little bowler hat on him, sorted.
Yeah.
It's not that automatically leaves a sour taste in the mouth, especially if your audience is mainstream moviegoers and comic fans who have been promised the comics.
Yeah,
it's the change isn't the issue, it's the positioning and how it's being proposed.
It's the story beats. So the problem, and this is where I was going with this hypothetical trilogy, the problem was Snyder could have created that, but then the world, and thus the studio, and thus everyone else working on the film, was like, okay, so let's just take that, but rework it into a Justice League universe thing. And that doesn't work. Because what made the Avengers, what made the Marvel Cinematic Universe work was that it hit the story beats. And it's essentially an abridged version of the comics. We started off with Iron Man and all of those origin stories we got in Phase 1. And that was just the 60s of comics. That was just, oh, hey, all these superheroes exist. And then the Avengers movie was literally just a retelling and a reworking of the original Avengers comic. It had the same villain. It had the same setup. Avengers issue 1 was Loki has come to Earth, the Avengers form and stop him. Like, there was obviously in this one comic, there was no like, oh, the Tesseract and Thanos.
Yeah, there's no Captain America in those ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the general concept is the same.
Yeah.
And then Age of Ultron, the general concept was they've been working together for a long time. One of them makes a bad guy. It shakes the team. In the comics, it was Hank Pym creating Ultron because he had an inferiority complex. In the movies, Tony Stark built him because he has anxiety and fear. Yeah. Like, the changes aren't what make people upset. It's the missing the core concept.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And now with Avengers 3, we've sped ahead so far. So we've gone from the 60s with Avengers 1 to like the 80s, 90s with Avengers 2, and now to the 2010s with Avengers 3 being an adaptation of guess the Infinity Gauntlet story, but more Infinity, which came out about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
With
I
like,
mean, Civil War, which was
yeah,
last,
2005.
it was last year. That was 2008.
5 was when
It was 2005.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's these story beats that we were promised, but with the Justice League, there is no story beat. This Justice League film that came out, it exists purely as a let's catch up with Marvel. There is, as you mentioned, no overarching story that
yeah.
they're telling.
There is no villain in that movie. There really isn't.
Yep.
It's there's the I think as well with the characters, and I want to talk about Batman for a bit as well. Again,
Okay.
when you're making an abridged version of the comics, the characters are very important. I mean, obviously, when your characters are set in 2010 and the story you're retelling is from the 60s, obviously you rework it. For instance, Peter Parker is a kid at a diverse high school he's a smart kid, but he's not making his own incredible spider traces because that's completely unrealistic for a 15-year-old. Has he made web shooters? Yes, he has. Has he, got all that sort of character passion and power about him? Absolutely. But is he, is he copy and paste from like the first comic? No, he's not.
I love that you just got that on hand.
I just have that to hand. No, but the essence and the soul is absolutely there. Again, if you want to make this is exactly what the Dark Knight trilogy was. If you want to make a spin on that, a inspired by, then you can twist the characters. That's to be expected.
The Dark Knight trilogy at no point promised the Batman universe.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no Robin aside from that bit. There
Yeah.
was no Arkham Asylum. There was no Rogues Gallery.
No.
Just Batman, 3, maybe like 4 villains, and a little bit of Catwoman. Like, I've watched that trilogy a few times. I'm not a massive fan of it. However, that's because when I watch Batman, I want Gotham, and the Dark Knight trilogy had no interest in giving us Gotham. It was just New York renamed to Gotham. And it told this story. It told its own self-contained story that at no point promised more characters. And so we didn't feel let down by it.
The issue with Justice League, and more specifically Batman, is again the entire promise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but DC. And making Batman this, again, it would have worked by itself in a Superman trilogy, but making Batman this washed out, old, violent serial killer who we know nothing about and we do not get told anything about does not work.
It relies entirely on cultural knowledge. It relies entirely on the audience already knowing who Batman is.
Except for the whole murder thing. It's like obviously you can write out your own backstory and say, well, Robin got killed and he's 60 odd years old and he's given up hope. Sure, that's fine. But the big thing that it made me uncomfortable, because I thought The Flash was really nice. I thought Cyborg was really cool. I mean, obviously they gave Barry Allen Wally West's personality, which, I don't actually care. We got a fun Flash, so
yeah.
okay. But in terms of Batman, if I imagine a cartoon version of this, if I imagine the Justice League animated characters, but it's this movie, Batman, when he goes to Aquaman, slight spoilers, not really spoilers, when he goes to Aquaman and he says, Aquaman, Jason Momoa, I know that like, you're Aquaman and I need your help. Batman would go, he'd say, I know who you are. The world needs the Justice League. Superman's gone. There are bigger things coming. And, he goes, well, I'm not going to join. He goes, well, I know you'll make the right choice because Batman demands power in every situation he's in. And he'd just leave. But
Yeah.
instead, what do we get? We get this back and forth. They go for a stroll, and he's like, please, 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 please join the Justice League. I really need you. We need loads of friends. We need to be together. And it's like, that is not Batman. That is not what he would do. And obviously, I get the point that, like, he's a changed man and he's hopeful. But in the comics, he's hopeful. He can be a really positive, inspiring guy, but he's blunt about it. The thing that really grates me about when people talk about the DCEU and like why it's different to Marvel is they'll always go, it's grittier, it's darker. And it's like, well, okay, yes, it's darker, but the characters are beacons of hope in that darkness.
I mean, literally, you have. I mean, they reworked it for these films, but you have the S on his chest stands for hope. Some people think that's corny. I think it's really a really good explanation of having this symbol. But then you have the Green Lanterns.
Mm.
They're not hope, they're willpower. But they're literally symbols of willpower.
Can you imagine if Man of Steel or, like, a DC movie, if they did a DCEU version of Green Lantern, and he's just like, oh, life's so hard, I can't be bothered to do it. And it's just like him sitting with this ring like, I wish I wasn't so dark and gritty that I could use my powers. Oh, woe is me. That'd be so funny. That would be a comedy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It would work as a very, like, Birdman story. Yeah. Oh my god! But, like, there's a literal quote from Lois Lane, being like, "You need to be in the darkness to get to the light," or something from one of the previous films. And it's like, that is a perfect mission statement. How about you realize it?
Deliver it. Yeah, exactly. It's just one big misstep, this entire universe. Should we talk more about Justice League specifically? And then
I was going to bring up Justice League's narrative structure.
Sure.
And this is where we need to bring up two things. The first is social media and how our access to behind-the-scenes knowledge is more than ever.
Right, yeah.
And the second of all is, due to this, we now know Justice League had a very troubled production.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had, first of all, the executive meddling / pressure from the rival company to rush through things. Then we had Zack Snyder's personal tragedy, which meant that he had to step down as director when the movie was just over half done. And then you bring in Joss Whedon, who did a lot of rewrites, a lot of reshoots. And then you have editing, which can remake a movie entirely.
Well, it was 3 hours long, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now it's just under 2 hours.
Yep. And the thing is, you can entirely tell where that hour was taken, and it was taken from the beginning. I enjoyed watching the opening half of this Justice League film. However, the entire time I was watching it, I was clocking to myself that there was no narrative. Again, comparing it to the Avengers, because they're very comparable films, the Avengers had scenes of all of the different heroes doing their own thing and then getting recruited. You had Captain America in the gym. You had Tony Stark rebuilding some undersea thing. You had Black Widow going to recruit the Hulk, etc., etc. But it was all done with a purpose. It was all done with Nick Fury has encountered a danger. Let's call everyone in. Then the movie happens. Whereas the Justice League opens with excellent clips. I hesitate to call them scenes. It has excellent clips of Batman and Wonder Woman like running around trying to gather everyone together. Meanwhile, it's intercut with Steppenwolf arriving and destroying the Amazons and the Atlanteans.
Yeah.
But there's no connective tissue. Like, you. So Cyborg's origin was cut. We know that because Ray Fisher has talked about how annoyed he is and how a lot of his scenes were cut.
Oh, God.
The Flash's origin was, whether or not his origin story was cut, we don't know, but we know a lot of scenes were cut. What's her name? His love interest.
Oh, yeah.
Iris West?
Iris West. There we are.
Iris West had a scene in this film.
She was cast and everything, wasn't she?
Yeah. They shot this. You remember the bit in the trailer when Barry pokes a window and it smashes?
Yes, because I saw that and I said, that is beautiful and I'm in love with it. And then it never
Iris
happened.
was in a car crash or something. Like, Iris West was just out there and we were getting this kind of Barry Allen, not the Flash, just Barry Allen humanizing, character building scene. And then something happens and he runs and saves her. Like, totally disconnected from the plot. We just had this great scene of the Flash being a hero. And it was just cut. All of this character building, all of this necessary connective tissue that gives these superheroes an impact when they come together, has been cut.
It's all gone.
And therefore, the movie lacks an impact when it does come together. The ending moments of this film have scenes, have shots of these heroes standing next to each other and looking very proud of what they've accomplished. But because there was no setup, it's left weightless. All we really needed was, I don't know, just more time spent in Themyscira and Atlantis. One of my main issues was, you know, the scene where Aquaman goes to Atlantis, takes on Steppenwolf a bit.
Yeah, like, what was the deal with that? Like, where did that?
And then Mira, like, just has a chat with him.
Yeah, she just sort of shows up and she's like, "Oh my," like, I'm
Do
confused.
you even remember what they talked about?
It was something about Atlantis and the throne, and it doesn't look like they're together.
No, and the deal with that,
I'm flat out completely confused by
the only reason I know what that scene was about was because I read some. Sorry if there's noise in the background. My flatmates are having a good time. The only reason I know what's going on in that scene is because I read some behind the scenes stuff. Aquaman isn't the king of Atlantis in this film.
Right.
This is prior to his origin. Like, the Aquaman film that we're getting next year is going to be the origin story of him becoming the king.
That just doesn't work.
It doesn't, because in this film we haven't established like Aquaman is the savior of this town, but he's not actually like Aquaman yet. And Mira is like this character who we don't know because we don't spend enough time with her, who's like, I don't like you, Arthur Curry. You may be the natural born heir to the throne, but you don't deserve. Like, we had a Thor. It's just Thor, except with nothing.
With nothing. Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, I'm going to be honest. Aquaman was actually my least favorite out of all the.
I mean, I'm
going to be honest. I mean, SJW, whatever. But the comment about Wonder Woman, he's like,
oh my god,
that didn't help me at all. I was like,
no.
Honestly, that actually just made me dislike him. I'm going to be honest. Like,
it's like, oh, if we're gonna go down that route,
of
all people,
we can touch on it, I'm sure, but
yeah, of all people, Wonder Woman should be the person that Aquaman has the most respect for because they are the same character.
Yeah, I agree. It just makes him come across as this sexist prick, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, it was meant to be funny, and people laughed, and I was like, I'm not impressed, really.
No.
It's just a
I enjoyed the joke, which was, oh, look, this tough character is having a nice moment. Oh, but it's because of the lasso of truth. That's funny. Like, the only thing that
Yeah.
broke down his guard and revealed his true self was this thing. But then, when the heartfelt moment was undercut with, let's be honest, a very Joss Whedon joke.
Yeah. Boy, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
Self-proclaimed feminist, but actions speak
Oh,
louder.
and also he reused a joke. So in the Age of Ultron, when Ultron attacks the party, Natasha drags Bruce across a counter and he falls on top of her and gets flustered.
Yeah.
Flash does the same thing to Wonder Woman in this film.
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, very clever, Joss Whedon.
Well done, Joss Whedon. You know what boobs are.
Yeah, they exist, my man. Cool. Am I right?
Right.
Dearie me.
The problem with the Justice League was that after three movies that said something and one that didn't, it didn't. So Man of Steel said something about the identity of Superman. Batman v Superman, as we've discussed in depth.
They all tried, didn't they?
And Wonder Woman was a very inspiring story on bringing hope. It's the hope thing. Like, it's restoring Diana's faith in humanity. And then Justice League is like, there's an action figure, punch him a bit.
There was no. Again, the villain is probably the worst thing about this film, because all the scenes with the Amazonians like protecting the cube, the stuff with, I don't know, whoever, I don't even remember. Like, I didn't care. I could not care less about those scenes. Cut those scenes, right? I want to spend time with the Justice League, and they're just stupid filler for a villain I don't care about, a plot that is. He could have just shown up, and I would have been like, all right, yeah, go on. He's trying to destroy the world with his axe. I'd be like, all right, you don't need to build up this. Like, it was, I mean, obviously, there's probably some reference to it to the comics, but it just felt like an Infinity Gauntlet knockoff. It was like, look at these three powerful objects I have to assemble. And it was like, they're just cubes. I don't.
The thing is, they didn't even tell us what they were. Like, they didn't even tell us what the mother boxes were.
No, it was just
of the New Gods and Darkseid. And apparently, there was more of that before it got cut. Apparently, the Darkseid was going to bookend these films.
Yeah.
This film. Much in the same way that Thanos technically, or Thanos, I don't know how to pronounce it, technically bookended the Avengers.
Yeah.
With, like, Loki was talking to him, and then at the end of the movie, it's like, haha, I'm going to do it myself. That kind of thing. Apparently, we were going to get that with Darkseid, which would have given...
Which, you know, would have been just another rip-off of the Avengers, a Hawk doing the work for the man in the chair.
Right? So, like... But the thing that we lost out was an explanation of why we should care. Like, it's very difficult to do exposition on tech, sci-fi, babble, MacGuffins.
Yeah.
But the Avengers did it well enough with the Tesseract, which was literally just, the good guys want it because it's an unlimited energy
power. It's like, what is this? This is cool.
Yeah. The good guys want it. The bad guy wants it. But we don't know why.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, there's an inherent... I don't care about it, but I care about the good guys having it. That's all you need. If you go into more detail, you run the risk of losing people. And that's what Age of Ultron did with the Infinity Stones and Thor's vision.
Yeah.
If we just spent more time... Because Thor's vision got cut down... which made us care less, because if you'd have kept the full scene, then we would have started to care about why these things are so important. But as we have the middle ground where it's like, oh, I don't understand what's going on, I don't care. But now that now that we know what they are, now that thanks to Doctor Strange and the Vision having one of them in his forehead, they're attached to the characters.
Yeah, they absolutely are. They're characters themselves at this point,
Yeah.
with Star-Lord and everything. Yeah,
Exactly. So Justice League didn't have that because it was just, there are some boxers on Earth. Steppenwolf wants them.
yeah. No, actually, what was the deal with Cyborg? Was Cyborg a mother box?
Yes. So the deal with
Because
Cyborg, again, it was cut. It was cut. It was not explained. That's all we needed. This, as we see in the email scene in Batman v Superman, Cyborg was
sorry. Scene.
bit.
Yes,
Bit.
go on. Continue.
So you have Victor Stone, Gotham City University student. He dies, and his father, who works for Star Labs, uses a mother box to bring him back to life and turn him into a cyborg.
And the cyborg bits on his body, that is the mother box?
Yes, it's alien technology.
All right.
Yeah.
If they elaborated on this more, then I may have cared.
Yeah. So there isn't his vision. It's like he is part thing we know, part thing we don't. Therefore, we don't want the bad guy to have that thing because that would kill this guy. And that's like why we then get the mother box can like resurrect people and stuff. But what we don't have is either an understanding of what the mother boxes are, or failing that, a reason to care regardless.
Yeah.
We just have the informed knowledge that if Steppenwolf does thing will be bad. That's not enough reason to care. Malekith, that was the same motivation. The ether was just thing bad guy wants, therefore stop bad guy. But that's not enough for an audience to care. What is enough is good guy wants it as well. The moment you add that in, doesn't matter how stupid the MacGuffin is, the audience will care about the MacGuffin.
It adds so much more trajectory and
velocity.
There's so much more of a focus with it. I mean,
it becomes a tug of war.
Yeah, you can. Again, we're going into film theory, narrative theory here, but honestly, it could be something ridiculous and stupid, like in a Deadpool movie. It's like, it honestly, the MacGuffin could quite simply be like a taco, because he's like, oh, I really want my chimichangas and stuff, and it's like, well, actually, and then, there could be this really. I mean, I'm just making up the plot of a.
Like, no, if we're going to do this, because you could easily make that a comedy beat. So Deadpool, Deadpool makes a chimichanga.
Little does he realize inside this chimichanga is like, yeah, exactly.
Then you've got this excellent comedy where Deadpool's entire motivation is he's got the munchies, but the bad guy is like, no, I need the diamond of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
And Deadpool's like, I don't give a shit, give me my food. It's funny.
Exactly.
And you care.
And, oh, dearie me, and there's just none of that. There's no Deadpool in Justice League. There are no chimichangas in Justice League.
That's what we need.
That's what we need.
In Justice League 2. Oh, and also there's the thing, Justice League was supposed to be part 1 of 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember back in, like a year or two ago, I remember being told it was part 1 and part 2, but apparently not.
Apparently not.
What was the deal?
I don't know. Also, my favourite thing is, we talk about this movie promising us a trajectory, and then we don't have one.
There's nowhere to go from here. Like,
do you remember D23 when Marvel first announced their slate of films from Civil War onwards?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what the next DC film is?
Well, I mean, they keep cancelling them. They keep rescheduling them. I don't have a clue. Not a clue.
Aquaman has filmed, maybe finished filming. I don't know.
Yeah,
Aquaman is
it's
happening.
Aquaman or the Flash, isn't it?
Yeah. Aquaman is happening next year, I believe. The Flash is also scheduled for next year. However, it doesn't have a director.
Yeah, it has nothing going. I mean, they did a. Is Batgirl happening anymore? Apparently, it's not.
Batgirl by Joss Whedon has been announced. That's all we know. Gotham City Sirens, a spin-off of Suicide Squad, has been announced. That's all we know. Suicide Squad 2, directed by Mel Gibson, has been announced. That's all we know.
Stepped down, I think, actually.
Okay, Suicide Squad 2, without a director, has been announced.
Yeah.
Flash, as we mentioned, is called Flashpoint, which, if you know anything about the Flashpoint, oh dear.
I mean, God.
The Batman has been announced. It had a script. It was going to be directed by
Ben Affleck.
He stepped down as director. They trashed his script. And now Deathstroke, the villain of that film, has been given his own film. There is a Joker film.
I was going to say Joker.
The Joker.
Not starring Jared Leto.
What is going on?
It's the worst thing in the world. Yeah. See, Shazam is the only one that I can like. Oh my God! Just this entire there's no.
Wonder Woman 2 is happening, except Gal Gadot has said that she won't reprise her role if this one studio executive is still in business because of what's going on with that right now. There is no trajectory.
And Ben Affleck wants to step down from the role of Batman full stop.
Yep.
It looks like. Well, I mean, it's there are two stories going on, two sort of solid stories right now. One of them is Shazam. And it's like that seems like the only sort of confirmed. Yeah, okay, we kind of know what we're doing here.
And that's not even a part of the Justice League.
It's not even a part of the Justice League. And Flashpoint. And not because they know what they're doing, it's because they know what they can do. Because they're going, right, we'll just wipe the slate clean. Let's get a younger actor for Batman. What do you think the best course of action is? To continue with these characters that we know and just sort of forget about continuity and just go, well, hey, we're just gonna make a good Justice League movie. We're gonna do a Green Lantern Corps movie. Or do you reckon that they go to Flashpoint and say, right, we're getting rid of all of this. We're going to get a younger Batman. We're going to get this going on.
I think that's what's going to happen, and I think that is possibly the worst idea aside from making
aside from
Justice League
Squad.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because the problem with DC Comics has always been there is no sense of faith, because you know that anytime they mess up, they reset. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Flashpoint, the new 52.
Yeah.
And even recently, they've had the Doomsday Clock thing going on. And
how many reboots have they done within like the past 5 years or something? Too many.
It's called Rebirth. That's the one.
Rebirth. There we are.
A lot. Marvel has done one, and even then, it's not really. In 2015, Marvel had Secret Wars.
Yeah, I mean, they introduced the Ultimate Comics back in like 2001 when they realized the 90s comic sales were kind of a bit rubbish. They sort of just did a spin-off universe. Yeah. And then, as you said, Secret Wars, they're like, okay, now we're back on our feet. Let's kind of smush them together. Not reboot. We're going to retwist reality.
Yeah.
And then carry on.
It wasn't getting rid of anything bad. Like, Crisis on Infinite Earths was like getting rid of all the mistakes they'd made with Superman stuff. Flashpoint was reworking the timeline because it was bad. Secret Wars was simply, let's bring these two universes together, remove the bad, bring in the good.
In full honesty, Secret Wars was, at least from my perspective, let's have Miles Morales in the mainstream, but also keep Peter Parker alive. That's for me. That feels like the core sort of point that they went for.
They did other things with it. Case in point, the multiple Mjolnirs, the bringing in. There was someone else they brought in. Oh no, who was it? There was Miles Morales, but there was also, I don't know, a couple of other characters. But you're right. The main point was let's bring in Miles Morales and rework some things.
Yeah. Get some diversity up in here, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good fun.
So the problem with the Flashpoint movie is we're now focused too much on the idea of continuity.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we don't actually care. It's nice to have the idea of continuity in a universe because it gives a sense of weight to actions. However, even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's not much. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think after Infinity War, continuity in the Marvel Universe is not going to be a thing. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to happen at the end of Infinity War, but I get the impression from rumors and stuff that they're going to do a bunch of time travel, they're going to do a bunch of reality shifting, they're going to do a bunch of deaths, and then after Infinity War, sort of just free range, they're sort of just going to go, right, that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now we're just sort of going to keep making, Marvel movies with these characters, but that there is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Forget about continuity. And I think DC is getting too bogged down with. I mean, Suicide Squad. What is that? There is no continuity with that. I hate that movie.
Suicide Squad.
I hate it. Oh. I do.
Okay. The problem with Suicide Squad, aside from the problems with it as a movie, the problems with it as a concept, is it happened too early. What it tried to be, or what I would have made it, I suppose, is a reverse rogues gallery. So the thing with the DC universe right now is that we've jumped in when it's already been in progress.
We've jumped at the end, at the death of Superman.
So one of my issues with the Marvel universe is that a lot of the reason people say, "Oh, there's no good villains," is because in one movie they are introduced and killed off. There are prisons out there. In Civil War, we were introduced to the Raft. Now, I think that's the biggest missed opportunity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Because we see prison cells containing our heroes. That's cool. Literally, add in 10 seconds of footage of Tony Stark and Thunderbolt Ross walking down a hallway. In the background, Lilo and Stitch style, is just prison cells for criminals.
You're a genius. You're a genius. That's perfect. That's because the Avengers exist, Iron Man exists. We don't have to see every single adventure of theirs. I mean, you could throw. I mean, they kind of did that with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I mean, they introduced Scorpion, but at the end, in the end scenes credits, you see other Spider-Man villains. So they've caught on.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. You should have and could have thrown in so many just.
Like, not even good ones. Like, you could have gone B-list, C-list, like Whirlwind, Bullseye, I guess. Like, The Beetle. Just anything to give us an idea that there's more out there that we're not seeing.
Yeah.
And that's what Suicide Squad was trying to be like. Suicide Squad was trying to be like, hey, there's a bunch of villains out there. Arkham Asylum exists. Some of them have been rounded up in the past. like Captain Boomerang. I enjoyed the Captain Boomerang, the Flash little bit that we got at the beginning of that
It
film.
was the only good bit in the film.
Yeah, right. And then what it could have been was like at the end of Suicide Squad, if it had taken place after Justice League, it would have planted this idea that there are villains out there that can now you can open the next Batman film, Flash film, any film, you can now open up with Arkham Asylum. A breakout happens, three criminals escape, the superhero has to track them down and put them back in prison. Every single DC film can follow that template and be its own unique film.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely a lot to be done with that.
Yeah.
And
A problem that
I
people
mean,
have is
what feels really gross for me. I mean, other than you see Batman beat up Deadshot in that film, other than you see the Flash for a split second, it feels entirely separate. Entirely separate. Because when is Suicide Squad set? It's set between
like a year after Batman v Superman.
so it's set between Batman versus Superman and Justice League.
Yeah.
Between the two. So wouldn't you say it feels extremely out of continuity, which DC is trying particularly hard to establish?
Oh, absolutely. Given
For
the
Batman and Wonder Woman to not have anything to do with Suicide Squad, and for Suicide Squad to not even they don't even mention, oh yeah, the thing that went down in whatever city with Enchantress. God damn it!
Midway City, the home of Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Oh my god!
I'm just going to throw that one out there. One of my main issues, and this goes for Marvel as well, they're not exempt from this, is there is very little sense of world with these movies. You have like a little bit. We're getting it. I mean, Wakanda is excellent world building.
Yeah. Wakanda and Spider-Man Homecomings, like fine, just honestly, just the final end bit with like the prison.
Yeah.
That like after scenes credit and Wakanda, I agree.
Yeah.
Steps in the right direction.
We have the Avengers Tower and the Avengers Facility. We have good places. DC Universe has a little bit. For example, the Kent Farm. That's a well-established place in the Justice League film. When we see any bit with Lois, honestly, had a really good sense of place. We care about the Kent Farm. In the Man of Steel film, when the Kryptonians attack it, that's something to care about. We don't care about Metropolis because it has no sense of place. We don't know. So my deal is Metropolis and Gotham are meant to be two sides. Metropolis is this perfect utopian city with the Daily Planet and skyscrapers, and Gotham is meant to be the city of crime with Tim Burton style Gothic architecture and dark alleyways and what's it called? The chemical plant and
Ace Chemicals,
Ace Chemicals and the Penguins Iceberg Lounge and all of that. Batman v Superman never gives us this. It gives us two cities that look just like New York.
Yeah.
And that exist.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they did promotional art or something, or a trailer or something where Batman.
There was a tie-in with Turkish Airlines.
Oh my god, Turkish Airlines! But you see, like the Ace Chemicals logo, and I'm like, that's Gotham City.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. And then you never see it again. It's the worst. No,
have you played? Go on.
Oh, were you going to say have I played any of the Arkham games?
I was.
Yeah, no, I have. I play Arkham Origins, which is arguably the worst, but it's the Christmas themed one every year around Christmas.
Oh, beautiful! Just
Batman,
the very sense of presence.
Snow. Brilliant. Anyway,
go on.
No, sorry, I just realised something when you talk about Lois Lane. Do you mind if we hop onto that?
Yeah, by all means.
When the Flash goes back in time, and Batman has that dream.
Oh my
Flash comes
god.
through, and he goes, "Lois is the key." Oh, I've gone back. I've gone back too far. Was that when Batman arrived at Superman's, or like, because Superman like wakes up and he like beats up the Flash and stuff. Was Batman turning up with Lois Lane? Was that the Lois is the key?
Oh my god.
Because I watched that and I was like, why is Lois there? Why is she there? Where did she come from? That was the most forced thing in the world. And then afterwards, I was just, I was doing my thing, making my coffee, and I just went, was that?
Oh, I didn't even.
But like, I don't know.
There is. Because, like,
It's like
imagine
this.
trying to put that into Justice League. Imagine having the Flash travel back in time again, but like forward from his first appearance in Batman v Superman to be like, whoops, hey Batman, take Lois. But then in Justice League 2, you would have to establish the Flash having the interdimensional treadmill and being like, do you remember that one time when Superman happened? I've got to, like, that is the most obtrusive plot point.
I don't know. It just feels like they kind of messed that up.
Yeah, it
I,
does.
I mean, obviously, it might not be for that, and it might be for the part two that isn't. I
The very
don't
fact that we're discussing the overarching narrative and laughing.
It's the worst. I hate it. What is
So, where did what this came from?
Oh, DC.
What should DC do now? And what I believe they should do now is make a goddamn film. And the reason being is that the last time we were in this situation where we were like, well, what now? The last time that happened, Wonder Woman came out.
Yeah.
And it was just a goddamn film.
It was a film, wasn't it? I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
the biggest fan, but it was a film, and it wasn't
Yeah.
god awful. It was just a film, and it's like,
So the next film we're getting is Aquaman. Like, that is definite. That's not like up in the air or anything. Aquaman.
It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. It
I
feels
know.
like everything's up in the air. Oh god.
Aquaman, I believe, is going to be another Wonder Woman.
I mean,
And the reason being is they're so comparable. We have Themyscira and its princess, and we have Atlantis and its prince. All we need, literally all we need out of that film, is to grow to love Atlantis, grow to love Aquaman, and have a good superhero story. We don't need anything aside from maybe a brief mention of Arthur Curry is in the Justice League, and he feels inspired to help out. That's all we need, because we had this arrogant Arthur where Batman was like, "Why don't you want to save humanity?" And Arthur goes, "Because humanity doesn't deserve it," kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Now we have a changed guy where he's like,
lasso of truth, save the world. Yeah,
exactly.
Change.
Now we have Aquaman who wants to help. Therefore, he is worthy of being king. Therefore, he takes down Black Manta, becomes king of Atlantis. You've got a film, you've got character development, you've made a point about responsibility. That's a good film. Do that with every character you have, and then by the time Justice League 2 comes around, then start caring about continuity. Don't Flashpoint. Just give me the Flash being a superhero and tell me what Star Labs is doing, because Cyborg's dad works for Star Labs. There's your continuity. The Flash does a superhero thing, and within that film, Cyborg is given some character development. Whatever, sure, maybe a setup for like the Flash getting to know his dad. That kind of thing. Simple. But give us Iris West, give us, I don't care what villain, Captain Cold. Like, what we don't need is Reverse Flash. because that would just be the Marvel problem
Well,
of the first story being a clone villain.
that's absolutely what the story for Flashpoint is. Flashpoint is the Reverse Flash because it's going back in time to stop his mum being killed. They're absolutely
Right. Okay. I haven't read Flashpoint, but I've
no,
just got
sure. I haven't read it properly either, but the idea is, I mean, I've seen the TV show, which is, you know, good, bad, whatever. Point is, the whole deal with him traveling back in time is because Reverse Flash killed his mum when he was a child. So he travels back in time to stop that happening. He does stop it happening,
right.
consequently changing time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give us that, and then give us a cyborg film. Just give us a film, and then because you've teased it, give us Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And then Green Lantern can be the last one before Justice League 2. Like, I don't... Oh, and also Wonder Woman 2, because apparently the script that they're currently working with has her in the 80s fighting against the communists. So that is the best reason not to continuity it up, regardless of, like, how that will turn out, because, like, communism, okay.
I mean, how do you fight communism? You just sort of punch a bunch of starving people. Like, what's the deal? How does that work?
I don't know. But just give us another Wonder Woman film because we like Wonder Woman. Give us a film, give us all of that. Give us a Shazam film.
Yeah.
Although apparently they're doing the Shazam film and then a Black Adam film. Dwayne Johnson does not need to be the leading man in every film.
He does not. He doesn't. Oh my goodness me.
So I don't care about Suicide Squad 2. I don't care about Gotham City Sirens. Actually, no. I care about Gotham City Sirens purely for representation purposes. That's good.
I mean, obviously, cool. I want that. I mean, I did a video about this and I got lots of hate. Hey, I was basically saying, obviously, I want a Gotham City Sirens where we have 3 fantastic females leading, but after what Suicide Squad gave us, I'm not fond of thinking about the DC EU. I mean, who was it? It was the guy who directed Suicide Squad. The director, David Ayer, was given Gotham City Sirens.
Yep.
I think he's been booted off the project now. But initially when that came out, I was like, I don't want the guy who digitally edited Harley Quinn's shorts to be higher up her ass doing a film about not only Harley Quinn and Catwoman, but Poison Ivy specifically.
She's a very complex character.
She's a very sexy character, and I don't believe that David Ayer would do her fairly, if I'm honest. So that's my concern. That's my yeah.
That's true.
Anyway, obviously, you know, if it works out well, then it works out well. But.
Yeah. Same with Batgirl. Like, people have issue with Joss Whedon doing Batgirl because of Joss Whedon. However,
he's an odd fellow.
Just like, I don't know, give us Buffy the Vampire Slayer again. I've never seen it, but like,
oh, it's good. I love Buffy.
Right? Just
give us. It confuses me. How? Why? Like, what's the deal? You know?
I don't know.
Buffy was fine. Buffy was great.
It's really simple to do. Oh, God. Just don't mess with it.
I mean, Batgirl basically is Buffy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there is an orgy of evidence to suggest that Joss would do an excellent movie and an orgy of evidence to suggest he would do a bad movie. Have you seen the Wonder Woman script he wrote? It's so bad.
Yeah.
But like, if we got a good Batgirl movie, again, it would be standalone because she's never appeared before. But what it would also do would expand upon the Bat universe, give us characters to care about, and not necessarily have to give us more than a Batman cameo. You would just, like, I don't know, rewrite her to be like Batwoman, where she's her own character who just uses the Bat branding. And then you could give us like Dick Grayson as Nightwing is out there doing his own thing, because he definitely is. If we've had Jason Todd's death,
Well, I
Nightwing's
think
just
they've
out there.
confirmed it. I think they have said Nightwing exists in this universe, which
Yeah.
begs the question: why wasn't he in Justice League? Like, if
Also,
Batman is
like, we're
building
getting
a
a Titans live action series, so we're getting like Nightwing, but TV. I don't know. But like, all we need to do right now is just do a series of good standalone superhero films, and then Justice League 2
not
that brings
directed by
them,
Zack
not
Snyder.
directed by Snyder.
No
Or,
offense to the guy, but not directed by Zack Snyder.
yeah, just give Zack Snyder his own thing. Because like, when he stepped down from Justice League, he then went away and made a short film. I've not seen it, but like, it's a project that he did. I enjoy it when he does that. Just
Well, there we are. Is that a conclusion to our live stream, Greg?
I guess it is. Should we? We had a little point about Batman v Superman and Justice League relating to Age of Ultron and Avengers, in that the movie that tries harder and fails is possibly better than a movie that just succeeds.
Yeah,
Should we have that be our concluding point?
we shall. I mean, I don't think Justice League succeeded at all. But
I think Justice League succeeded in being a tonal reset and an inoffensive movie. What would have been disastrous would have been if we'd have had Batman v Superman 2, where it would have been just trying very, very hard and ruining the characters even further. What Justice League did was it gave us more characters, didn't do anything terrible with them, and it just went, now other people can do good things. It was a good tonal reset, a fun movie that just exists.
sure.
It's not great. The narrative is weak, but it exists, and it gave us some good actors. Like, but I can tell you that I'm not likely to watch it many more times. Whereas Batman v Superman, I regularly go back and watch.
Sure, sure. I do not know if I would ever watch Justice League again. I mean, obviously I will, because welcome to the real world, but I
Yeah.
have no intention of seeing it again. I have no sort of desire. Batman versus Superman, as much as I dislike that movie with what I can only refer to as a delicate passion, it tried. It had some kind of direction that it wanted to go in, and I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate Zack Snyder trying. But the way I see Justice League is a lazy, just uninspired. It just has nothing going for it other than, hey, here are some characters you like. Look, they're standing next to each other. Right. We did it. We got there. We did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in conclusion, I am very disappointed. Hi, I'm Bing Jim. I'm very disappointed about Justice League. Thank you for watching our 1 hour 40 long discussion
That
round.
was pretty good.
There we are.
You did well. If anyone who watches this has any further thoughts, hit us up on Twitter.
That's
Mine
something we didn't do.
is.
We didn't check the chat, the live chat.
There was one message which was essentially.
You guys are rambling. You say the same thing.
Yeah, there was one message which was essentially Justice League and Batman v Superman like had this kind of tone to them that Chronicle did really well, but I haven't seen Chronicle, so I couldn't comment.
Sure, sure. I haven't seen Chronicle either, so I can't.
Okay.
There we are. Thanks for interacting with us, guys. We
Yeah.
appreciate it greatly.
If anyone has any further comments, feel free to Twitter us. My Twitter is gregamiah. Of course, links will be in the description. James, do you want to?
Mine is Bing Jim, one word with a little underscore at the end. Feel free to, Twitter me as well. There we are. All good.
There we go. We both are big fans of superheroes in general. Expect more superhero content in the
Oh, goodness
future.
me. That's the one. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Greg, for having me. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. It's been a lot of fun.
Good fun. Bye-bye.
More live streams in the future. They're really good. Cheers, loves, I guess.